Hello, so this is my first YouTube video I'm just gonna upload. I have let go of the idea of having the right YouTube video, the right editing, the correct this, the perfect that, and I want to share my story about my experience in the mental hospitals and then wrap it up into where I'm at now, 10 years later, all within about 5 minutes, because apparently the human attention span is about 8 seconds and the goldfish is 9. So this is already probably too long for most of you. But when you hear about other people's dramatic stories of being in a mental hospital, I've watched a lot of them online. What I realized is I could have very well been telling the story that I have been on an antipsychotic for the past 10 years and I'm having excruciating side effects from wanting to withdraw and get off of them. For whatever reason, I was shown right before, like the month before I ended up in the mental hospital, the book, The Cancer Step Outside the Box by Ty Bollinger. So how did I end up in the mental hospital? Well, if you take trauma when you were young and then you repeat that over and over again, that reoccurring traumatizing experiences happen and you never address them and they're never talked about in your life, and you go on and you decide to eat sugar and caffeine and alcohol and all these brain damaging things and cannabis, the bombardment of our minds, our bodies, and our spirits over a long period of time on the certain personality type that was mine, which is an introvert with all of my emotional feelings, because I grew up in a family system that had to hide feelings and not talk about feelings, and the only feeling that really mattered was as long as I said to respond to the question, how was your day? Good. How was your time at your mom's? Good. Then everything was fine, even though inside I had all these memories popping up on my head of the really shitty time I had at school and all of these feelings that I had. So my story is how I ended up in a mental hospital is I had a breakthrough in really finally looking at the truth of my life up until that point. And that took so much facing of pain and suffering and realizing I did not grow up in a normal childhood that I so believed I did. And a lot of this has a lot of shame conversations around it. So we're already at 2 minutes, 50 seconds. So wrapping up now, I have still carried immense shame and embarrassment over this story. And in my head, people close to me, I'll tell them, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I never follow through with any of it, because there's so many blocks that I believe to be true that are preventing me from uploading a video like this, from sharing my story. And I've written 9 pages using Google dictation, and I'm petrified of sharing it. And people I told I was working on this project years ago haven't seen a lick of anything that they had been like, oh, I'll read it. Because there's always this relentless feeling that it's never going to be enough. I haven't edited enough. It's just my thoughts and my ramblings. It's not good enough yet. And I just saw this documentary called Medicating Normal, and it brought me to tears to see like that could have been me. That could have been my life, where I would have been on Zoloft for the past 10 years now if I didn't know and was educated and informed about these pills. And the only information it took for me to say no to the medication that was offered to me was about 5 pages in Ty Bollinger's book, The Truth About Cancer. And it detailed the relationship between Ellie Company and the Nazi Germany's about mind control. So I was already aware of the power of pharmaceutical drugs to take over my brain chemistry that was supposedly just turned against me. So now, I'm gonna shut it off in about 30 seconds. Now I've been 10 years of not on pills. I took 1 Zoloft pill, and it was enough for my mom to see me about to collapse in the Walmart parking lot, and I was a zombie, and all I could say was, Mom, and I'm like collapsing, and she catches me before I hit the asphalt. So to see that what saved me was informed consent, and it was of my own stumbling. It was just happenstance that I came across this. And if I hadn't come across this information before I entered a mental hospital, I would have been a great story for that documentary about being on psychiatric drugs for about 10 years and the near impossible suffering that people go through getting off of antipsychotics. So my mission in life is to give people informed consent on other options than medication as a solution for extreme psychological disturbance. And thankfully, 10 years have passed, and in that 10 years, we now have new branches of science related to neuroscience of the brain. And these are new, and of course, they're not going to be welcomed and adapted into our diagnostic statistical manual, because that was designed, and if you look into the history, if you watch this documentary, you will understand what I understood 10 years ago. We're now finally seeing it coming into more mainstream media, which I have been waiting to say anything until the more collective society kind of got up to speed on what I had found 10 years ago. Was I didn't need a pill. I needed a vegetable juice. I needed to lower the inflammation in my brain. I needed turmeric. I needed ginger. I needed to get off the caffeine, the alcohol, the cannabis, the sugar. I needed to detox all the things that alter my brain chemistry. And I want to close with one of my favorite Gandhi quotes, which I attribute partially to saving my life. And Wayne Dyer talks about this, Joe Dispenza talks about this, but Gandhi was famous and well-known before all this, and he puts it so eloquently. And it's, your thoughts become your beliefs become your actions become your habits, and your habits become your destiny. Now, I've been always told I'm a smart person my whole life. I never knew what people meant when they said this. And I always heard that, like, how can you tell I'm smart? Like, where is this coming from, you know? But I think it's because I make practical connections. So right when I heard that quote, because I got that from the Self-Realization Fellowship here in Encinitas, as another story. But when you realize that if you're diagnosed, like I was diagnosed bipolar, and I thought to myself, logic. Okay, my destiny is now bipolar mental hospitalizations a couple times now. If you backtrack from my destiny and you go to the very beginning of that quote, it's my thoughts. And then you ask yourself, well, where did all these thoughts come from? Thoughts come from society, thoughts come from your family, thoughts come from public school, thoughts come from everything outside of oneself is where the thoughts come from. And once I started meditating, I could see that all of my thoughts were not mine. It was the voice of my mom, the voice of my dad, the voice of my teachers, the voice of the psychiatrist, the voice of the doctors, the voice of everyone else but me. And that's the most empowering and scary freaking moment, is when I realized that everything that I thought was me is actually everyone else inside of my mind. It wasn't me that's thinking all this. And then I came to the mantra, I think and I am not my thoughts. Mind blown. I think and I'm not my thoughts? My whole life we're conditioned to think that our brains are just so ours. It's your brain. But yet most of our brains are hijacked from everyone else's opinions and beliefs. And we don't question what it is that's going on in our thoughts, which leads to our destiny, which is why are we in a job we don't like? Why are we in a mental hospital a couple times over again? So when I realized this, I realized I had the freaking key to get myself out of ever having to go to a mental hospital again, of ever having to step foot in one again. It took me a few lessons to go in and out, but each time I went to that mental hospital and out, I was that much more experienced on what so many Americans go through, that no one likes to talk about. No one in my family is saying, hey, you know, my daughter, you know, she just got out of a mental hospital. You know, she's really going through a hard time. And, you know, now that I look at it, it makes sense why she ended up in a mental hospital, because she had the most ungrounded childhood. Parents will not admit, because they feel like such shitty people, to realize that they were responsible for creating a very unhealthy living environment for their child, because that's the last things parents want. They want the best for their child. And so what we're facing is this population of people who aren't able to face the pain and the suffering that they have caused to other people, because that means that they're a bad person. And what I have to say to that is, no, you're not a bad person. You're human, because that happened to your mom and your dad and your grandma and your grandpa and forevermore. If you follow the lineage, there's trauma, there's sadness, there's pain, there's grief, and it's how we decide to go from realizing that we are responsible for hurting other people, I myself included, and that we are responsible for doing the best we can to educate ourselves, to reprogramming ourselves on how we can think differently, believe differently, act differently. So final closing words is, I'm no longer going to be silent anymore, and I'm not going to care what my hair looks like, if my upper lip is sweaty, and if I'm in workout clothes. I'm going to share, because I have decided that I'm not going to have a perfectly edited, wonderful, curated, beautiful lighting YouTube channel. I'm not doing it. Not right now, at least. I don't have it in me right now. I would love to. Be great. The good lighting, the fancy makeup, right, for your studio lighting and all this, but my most inspiring ideas happen when I'm on a run and I'm outside and I'm in the sunshine and my brain gets some time to reboot with some oxygen in it, and that's when the magic happens. So Teal Swan brings up that the most powerful currency we're going to have from moving forward is the currency of authenticity and vulnerability. Oh, see? I just burped. I'm a human. I'm gonna burp. I'm trying not to fart on camera. That'd be embarrassing. But you know what? Everyone does it. And I'm not gonna try to stand here acting like I've got it all figured out. Because if you asked me how I was feeling earlier today, I was feeling like shit, because I didn't exercise. You asked me how my relationship's going, not that great. Because the current state of our world is that we have free speech. For the most part. Of course, that's very controversial. But I have an ability to upload a video from this fancy computer phone that I have, and I don't have to edit it. I'm okay. One shot and I'm done. And if you've made it this far, thank you. Go ahead and check out the movie. You can get it online. It's $7 to watch it. I just watched it. It's a very powerful take on something that I have been silent about for so long, but I've been passionately into it for so long, behind the scenes where no one sees, except for a few people in my life that I go on rants about this. And it's called Medicating Normal. And that is something that really hit me strong when I saw this video. Is I had every reason to feel the way I felt, to have the anxiety that I felt, to have the mania that I had, to have the depression that I had. It all makes sense when you ask the right questions. If a therapist can ask you the right questions. When's the last time you had a traumatizing event? For me, I drove through a freaking fire with my brother in the car, and I was driving away thinking that my house was on fire. And then I get to the bottom of the hill and my stepdad's out there. So I think my stepdad is burning in the house. That's so traumatizing. Then I go to high school, days after the fires have passed, and I hear all these people who have Mercedes and Lexuses when they're 16 years old, and they're telling the teacher that, oh yeah, it was so hard. I had to go to a hotel room for like 2 nights. And yeah, and that's where I got very callous. And I was like, if I were to say anything right now, I will fucking cry my eyes out and be so embarrassed that I just had a meltdown in front of class if I even try to say, well, let me tell you how it was for me. You think that was bad? My neighbors died across the hill. And it was a year. So finally getting to how I ended up in a mental hospital. I had PTSD and didn't know it. And I was in a grieving process. And there's 4 different types of grief ways people can handle it. There's a healthy way, which is you cry, you talk about it like my mom. And me, I clammed up. I didn't talk about it. And mom would ask me, how are you doing? And I was like, numb. I might as well been on the Zoloft because I had like no feelings at all about it. I was like, whatever. Yeah, it happened. Yeah, I'm fine. I wasn't fine. But then I go up to this college and I get asked 2 questions. One from my cross country coach that said, have you ever considered how your parents' divorce affected your life? Holy freaking cow, that's a heavy one. Because I would say things that would kind of signify I had some issues, apparently. And I was like, whoa, damn, that was deep. All the while, not only was I processing that up in college, and I went through this crazy freaking anger period against my parents when I was in college. And then the other thing that happened was I had this 1 year of complete numbness over a PTSD thing. And I developed issues from that. From my childhood trauma not addressed, from moving to another place. I lived 2 dual lives my entire life. Mom's house, dad's house, 2 personalities. If you study psychology, you learn that in a child, you developed strategies to survive within your family system. If you are an alcoholic family, you become a people pleaser and you try to solve everyone's problems, and later in life, you become an adult child of alcoholics, and then you have issues with intimacy, you have issues, which is me, issues with self-esteem, issues with people pleasing, issues with finances, and so on and so forth. So all these things that never were talked about, to me, I'm like, no wonder why I ended up in a mental hospital. Like, duh. Not only that, when I was a kid, I ate donuts and Fruit Loops for breakfast. You want to talk about inflammation of the brain? Not only that, I was allergic to milk and cheese and dairy. And every day in high school, I would eat yogurt and I would come home from cross-country practice and drink like 3 glasses of milk. Brain inflammation. Research and studies are all about that. So it's no wonder why I got a mental illness, which we now know by Dr. Daniel Amen, is actually a brain health issue. Because once you fix your brain, the mind will follow, as he says. Also Mark Hyman's book, The Ultra Mind Solution, How to Fix Your Broken Brain. And I found his book. I was renting my own room in a condo in San Juan Capistrano, so like, San Clemente. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm reading it. I'm like, this is what I did freaking 6 years ago. This is the Bible of how I healed myself from bipolar. Like, someone who has a PhD wrote a book on it. And that's what I did. Veggie juice, 5-HTP, multivitamin, B vitamins, get off the cannabis, the alcohol, the sugar, don't do things I'm allergic to. All these things. Then you have Dr. Daniel Amen come up with his Bright Mind Solution. And I'm reading that now. It was like a 2020 book. And I was diagnosed when I was 18, 2008. So 11 years later or so, 12. Something around there. There I was. Doing it. And how did I come upon this without having any freaking books to follow? It's common sense. It really is common sense. If you have a mental illness, when someone's telling you have a brain chemical imbalance, well, what are some top 5 things that affect your brain chemistry? Sugar, alcohol, any cannabis. It affects your serotonin, your dopamine, your melatonin, all of those things. And those are the things we're talking about when we're talking about bipolar. You're having too much of this and a little bit of that. You're not having enough secretion of this and you have too much of that. To me, it was like, duh, hello, it's not rocket science, the solution. So it was like mind-blowing that I'm saying this, and I'm met by my family with just dismissal, ignoring me. Like, I'd be in the mental hospital being like, I don't want to take these pills. I need a veggie juice. Bring me a veggie juice and Brazil nuts. How am I going to get healthier if they're feeding me coffee with Splenda and Equal and sugar options and a wheat tuna sandwich with mayonnaise and freaking like processed foods? And I was vegan at the time. So it's like, hello, you want to talk about brain health? Where's my omega-3, my omega-6, my omega-9? Where's my turmeric tea for inflammation reduction? Where's my multivitamin? So I saw firsthand how broken this system is. And I was, for a lack of a better term, a guinea pig to the modern day archaic approach to healing and mental health. So I've designed and come up with this visionary solution for the new mental health care plan, which could very well be someone saying, oh, she's just manic again. She can't revolutionize mental health care. But guess what? There's so many people who realize that all these things that I did are scientifically proven. It's fact. And a lot of people are going to hold on so tightly to the identity that happens when you get a mental health diagnosis. I am bipolar. That's just who I am now. And I suffered with that. And that's not my audience. If you want to be bipolar, go for it. I'm not here to tell you to not own that as your ego and your identity. It didn't work for me because that started keeping me stuck and never healing myself because it became who I was. That's not who I am. I am Rachel, Mother Truckin' Harrington. And there's a reason why I never got on the medication. There's a reason why I stumbled upon that information right before I ended up in my first mental hospital, which is why when I was in the mental hospital, I could realize and see, and I would listen. I would overhear my psychiatrist. I would act like I'm just spacing out over here, lingering around the station where they talk about patients, and I would hear him speak such disrespect about the crazy people who just need more medication. Oh, when I heard that, I was like, hold on, Rachel. Do not let the rage out, because if you do, you will be in here that much longer. Maybe a better story to tell later on, but you will be freaking forced to take meds, which I was. Another story. So how is it that I'm now fine? I'm the kind of person, I can't afford to party. I can't afford to drink alcohol, smoke cannabis, do any, my brain is so sensitive because I've been very traumatized. And when you have a traumatized brain, you don't have a brain like other people anymore. You probably have some serious damage that you may never recover from. So you have to treat yourself like you are a special needs person. And that's not a curse. It's a blessing because you have a great reason to say no to so many things. So the longest video ever. Once I get going, I get going. And that's fine. I don't care. I'm not going to be selling anymore. And I've given up on having good makeup, good hair, good lighting. And thinking, oh, well, I don't look good today. Or I'm a little tired with my bag. I don't freaking care. I don't care. It would be great to have not just Rachel Rambles, but that's what we're going with. Because hopefully my Rachel Ramble maybe can be shared with someone else. Because you can also look into Marshall Rosenberg's information, compassionate communication, and apply that to having compassion for yourself, understanding as a human you have basic needs. And when they're not met, you're going to be bummed. You're going to be depressed. You'll be anxious. And if you can look at this list and go, wow, 30 out of 40, I don't even have. No wonder why I'm fucking off my rocker and I'm not doing well. So that's what happened to me. I saw this. I'm like, duh. Hello. I haven't had most of these most of my life. And you think that I was going to turn out okay? No, that's not how it works. So yeah, some people are more resilient and can bounce back better. But I wasn't one of those people. I've always been the sensitive one, the too sensitive one. So I'm really loud and I'm a little probably too fired up, but it's fine. You know, my nails, they look awful. I cut my finger. You know, I'm not here to be anything or prove anything, but to get over my own fear with doing this and posting something like this. So thank you for your time. Pardon the 25 minutes it's been. Who knows if it's even gonna like upload, because it might be too big, but I don't care. I actually, no, I hate that phrase. I value other things than vanity. Okay. If you want me to do a dancing video, I will, because that's one of the things that I believe that if you are, for me, that really helped me was being alone and just dancing all my feelings out. So I want to spread more love than just my rants and rambles. So have a lovely day wherever you are, and I'm not going to be silent anymore. No more all these blocks, all these things. So if there's more tricks and tools you want me to talk about, I have a cajillion different tools that I used and still need to use. And no, I'm not perfect. I don't have some great schedule and regimen that I do every single day, because I've got myself to a point enough where I can kind of function normal enough. So, but I still want to do them. I'd love to consider pursuing how I can help more people, sending people packets of my things that I use that really help me, and just sharing information. That's all this is about. Just sharing information. If it lands with you, great. If it doesn't, adios. You don't have to watch this ever again. I'm doing this really more for me, and as a side effect, it benefits whoever watches this, maybe. But yeah, check out the books by Mark Hyman, Daniel Amen, that I mentioned, and I will do my best to do that cliche thing, the thing where you put the links to in the description below. Don't even know how to do that yet. It might even happen on this video. That's okay. I'm gonna have to accept it. If you message me, I can send them to you or something. I don't know. Okay, bye. I said that like 5 times now. Bye, officially. Here's a moment of zen of where I'm at.